It's time to talk about the worst comic book of last week, and we figured that the John Stewart, the Emerald Knight one-shot from Geoff Thorne, based on the Green Lantern run that Geoff Thorne created that we haven't seen for about a year now, was probably going to be pretty ripe and pretty juicy for some roasting, and we were correct. And here to talk to me about that is Doc. How you doing, Doc?
I don't understand why this comic exists.
No one understands why the comic book exists. This run changed a lot of stuff about Green Lantern lore, but at this point in time, especially after Dark Crisis, they pretty much retconned or forgot every single thing that Geoff Thorne did with his Green Lantern run. So even the stuff that he's talking about here, like with the characters and with in the state of the Green Lantern Corps, none of it exists anymore.
You kind of forced me into reading a couple issues of the Geoff Thorne book. I think the last issue I read, where he becomes Emerald Knight at the end instead of a Green Lantern. And then this issue served to basically redo the ending of that. Like, well, I didn't really like what I did with that ending and what I did with the Corps. So now this is a one shot to change it again for absolutely no reason.
I get the feeling, Doc, this is my feeling about this comic book, is they already paid for it and it had already been illustrated and they didn't know what to do with it. So they truncate it and turn it into like a one-shot instead of a miniseries.
Probably. I mean, it was probably like issues 13, 14, and 15 or whatever the hell the next three issues would have been that they kind of edited down to, what was it, like 40 pages, I think, 44 pages, and then released as a story because it was like the next arc of that, but they just ended up doing it as a one shot, and it was really just kind of pointless.
What's really strange is they've already announced two new Green Lantern series for 2023, a Hal Jordan series from Mariko Tamaki and a John Stewart series from Philip Kennedy Johnson. A lot of people probably think that this is the beginning of one of those series, specifically the Philip Kennedy Johnson John Stewart series. And if they came on board to check this out because they thought it was a new beginning for Green Lantern, they're not going to come back. It's a little confusing.
I feel like Philip Kennedy Johnson had a plan for John Stewart that was going to basically disregard all of the stuff that Geoff Thorne did, like basically just be like, fuck it, it never happened. And he needed him to be an actual Green Lantern again. So this story really only existed so that now there's two John Stewarts.
We're going to get to that.
Yeah. I mean, so that Geoff Thorne can maybe try to convince somebody to let him come back and continue telling his terrible John Stewart Emerald Knight story, but it will somehow not contradict the Philip Kennedy Johnson series that is going to keep going because he won't accept the fact that nobody liked it.
So what Doc is talking about, if you're unaware, there's actually two John Stewarts now. We're getting our own version of the Clone Saga within Green Lantern because John Stewart is split in half. Both characters equally powerful. One is off to the abyss and the other is coming back to Earth. Do we need a Clone Saga for the Green Lantern Corps? I don't think so.
No, because the Green Lanterns are already essentially clones. It's a honestly, if they were going to do a decent Green Lantern story, they'd just do an office comedy story. That's what it really is. It's an office comedy at this point. 55 fucking Green Lanterns that all show up at different times and do different stupid shit, all being cops. But you definitely don't need a Clone Saga with multiple of the same. It's bad enough that there's already this many damn Lanterns on Earth. Now you got John Stewart Green Lantern and John Stewart Emerald Knight coexisting at the same time from some alternate reality that's not an alternate reality because it's a Hypertime reality, and I still don't understand Hypertime, and I really don't care.
Well, it exists within Hypertime. That's the important thing. And there was like a world that was destroyed that they brought back. It's just like sitting out there in like this pocket multiverse. Every time they try to explain what this stupid omniverse and multiple multiverses and all these things coexist, it makes it more dumb and more irritating that it even is existing in DC Comics.
Absolutely. And look, as a guy that's not a big, I admit I am not a big DC fan. So when they start getting into this omniverse, multiverse, hyperverse, hyper time, I just, my eyes glaze over and I just go, oh, it's just a way for you to make your Elseworld books matter. But they already mattered. They were in a multiverse. How you need something bigger, how you need multiverses, I don't understand, but whatever, fine. It's
the other thing about this comic I don't get at all, Doc. Why does Geoff Thorne think Mosaic is good? It's baffling.
I don't understand. Mosaic was one of the most poorly received kind of Green Lantern things that I recall from, what was it, like the late 80s, early 90s that they really introduced it. Mosaic sucks. Nobody cares. I don't even really quite understand what it's supposed to be.
And I don't understand why Geoff Thorne keeps trying to drag it back into Green Lantern. It's like, it's already been rejected, sir. You're only poisoning your own story by even thinking about it or even acknowledging it, let alone saying that it was good and it needs to be acknowledged even more in continuity.
I think it's because it was the Green Lantern series that gave Hal Jordan, or God damn it, I still want to say Hal Jordan. It's the Green Lantern series that gave John Stewart his own book for the first time, I guess.
Yeah, but nobody asked for a John Stewart like solo series, and they keep giving it to us. You know why, Doc? Because John Stewart is going to be the Green Lantern for like the DCU in the movie universe. So they keep pushing this failed version of a Green Lantern. People like Kyle Rayner, people like Hal Jordan, they like John Stewart just a little bit because he was in some cartoons and stuff. But mostly he only works in team books because he's a really straight edge character. He only is really interesting if he's playing off somebody that isn't like that, like a Guy Gardner or something, or Kilowog. Yeah,
he doesn't have the personality that Hal does. I mean, Hal's a very kind of straight, No,
he doesn't follow the rules. He's always kind of doing his own thing. He's always breaking the rules, but it's always the right thing to do.
Yes, he's serious. He doesn't have he's not like a really funny character. Hal's not really a funny character, but he does break rules. John really doesn't. And he just becomes boring. So you do need him in a more team environment, an ensemble environment. How they're going to make that work, they have to make him interesting in order to have him really solo. But that's the reason why, Geoff Thorne's entire Green Lantern run and this story wasn't a solo John Stewart story. It was still an ensemble team book story, but with just John as the center of it.
Yeah, but he ended up breaking all the Green Lantern lore. He like broke the central power battery, replaced it with like a giant pearl or something, started changing the core affiliations of classic Green Lantern characters to being Star Sapphires and Blue Lantern cores and all this stuff. And he ends up breaking everything, and they've thoroughly forgotten all this stuff. They went past it. They changed everything back to the way it was, yet they still released this comic book. I'm baffled why this even exists, but I hated reading it. That is for sure. This thing absolutely sucked, Doc. Nothing redeeming about it whatsoever. I liked Santucci on art, and I even didn't like the art that much.
I did not like the art. I'm not a big Santucci fan. Like the art on this was it kind of reminded me a lot of Igor Kordy, who I don't like as an artist. Like everybody looks a little too like they're melting. The way he did the action in this, I hate the way they got rid of the rings. Okay. And then they went to these stupid little orbs where they basically just fire energy out of the palm of their hand while they're holding a baseball. Apparently, by the end of the story, they decide that doesn't work. So actually about halfway through, so he switches them over to swords. And now they all have different types of swords.
They're swashbuckling now, Doc.
Yeah, like, and now they're not. Now they're just in like green, kind of like. Do you remember like all those like Arab guys in the Mummy movie that Omar, what's his name, was the leader of? Basically that kind of Middle Eastern ninja, whatever the hell that armament was, or that design sense with the scimitars. That's what he made them all dress as by halfway through this. I'm really confused, but he only had 7 of them because reasons. Does he
7 deadly sins? I don't know, Doc.
His own 7 soldiers of victory? Is that what it? I don't get it. I mean,
I don't think anyone gets it. Like, that's the problem. No one asked for this comic book, and when it's delivered, it's even worse than you can imagine. People are going to pick this up thinking it's the launch of the new Green Lantern series starring John Stewart, and they're going to hate it because it sucked, just like the series that it's finishing up here.
Yeah. And again, I feel like the only reason that this exists is so that there's 2 Green Lanterns. So maybe Geoff Thorne can convince somebody that somehow his book had merit. And even though they've already completely moved on to doing the, Philip Kennedy Johnson series, maybe, just maybe, he can get and do another issue of Hal Jordan Emerald Knight.
John Stewart Emerald Knight.
Yeah, fuck. Again, I can't, I don't even care enough to remember his name because it's that boring.
I mentioned on a couple of occasions during that video about how Geoff Thorne essentially destroyed the Green Lantern mythos within DC Comics. If you are unaware of the damage that Geoff Thorne did to Green Lantern and the way that he ruined it, and the reason that they ignored it all until this week for no reason, definitely check out this video. There's also a link in the video description.